My sister-in-law scheduled her wedding right on my daughter's birthday. My husband skipped the celebration and called my feelings excessive, so I was forced to show him the definition of real extremity. My name is Audrey Sinclair, and I am 33 years old. My husband's name is Daniel Hayes, and he is 37. We've been married for 9 years and have a 6-year-old daughter, Chloe. I need to express this because I'm genuinely uncertain if I'm overreacting or if the core of my marriage is truly fracturing. Daniel's family is challenging. His sister, Victoria, 32, has always been the favored one. She is a highly successful executive who has never married or had children, and her parents treat her with an almost worshipful reverence. Daniel, on the other hand, is a general contractor, which seems to be a continual source of disappointment for him. His parents, Eleanor, 62, and Robert, 64, have made it abundantly clear over the years that they feel he settled for less by marrying me and starting a family at a relatively young age. The history with Victoria is crucial to understanding the present conflict. She became engaged 3 years ago to Ethan, an investment banker. The engagement was a monumental occasion, with a party costing substantially more than our entire wedding. Eleanor immediately began organizing a spectacular wedding for the upcoming fall. Victoria insisted that every detail be perfect, constantly shifting dates and locations. It was originally set for May, then August, and finally October 14th. This is where the issues began. Chloe's birthday is October 13th. When Victoria announced the October 14th date during a Thanksgiving dinner, I gently mentioned that it was the day after Chloe's birthday. Victoria just waved her hand and noted that prime weekend dates disappear quickly for premier Napa Valley venues. Eleanor suggested we just move Chloe's celebration to the weekend before or after. Daniel simply sat there, nodding in agreement. I was already frustrated, but I thought we could manage it. Chloe is only 6. She wouldn't truly grasp the difference if we celebrated a few days early or late. However, in March, Victoria moved the wedding date to October 13th, which is the exact day of Chloe's birthday. I learned this when Eleanor called Daniel to relay the date change. She spoke as if it were a minor logistical note. I was standing right there when she announced the wedding was now the 13th. I took the phone and asked Eleanor directly if she realized that was Chloe's birthday. She confirmed she did, but explained that a coveted St. Helena resort had a cancellation and Victoria was set on that date. She then stated that Chloe would have countless more birthdays, but Victoria would only have one wedding. Daniel took the phone back and said he'd handle the situation. After he hung up, I told him how utterly unacceptable this was. Chloe had been talking about her 6th birthday celebration for months. We had already sent out invitations to her small group of friends for a party at our house on the 13th. I had purchased a custom cake featuring her favorite animated characters. We'd rented an inflatable castle. My sister-in-law scheduled her wedding right on my daughter's birthday. My husband skipped the celebration and called my feelings excessive, so I was forced to show him the definition of real extremity. My name is Audrey Sinclair, and I am 33 years old. My husband's name is Daniel Hayes, and he is 37. We've been married for 9 years and have a 6-year-old daughter, Chloe. I need to express this because I'm genuinely uncertain if I'm overreacting or if the core of my marriage is truly fracturing. Daniel's family is challenging. His sister, Victoria, 32, has always been the favored one. She is a highly successful executive who has never married or had children, and her parents treat her with an almost worshipful reverence. Daniel, on the other hand, is a general contractor, which seems to be a continual source of disappointment for him. His parents, Eleanor, 62, and Robert, 64, have made it abundantly clear over the years that they feel he settled for less by marrying me and starting a family at a relatively young age. The history with Victoria is crucial to understanding the present conflict. She became engaged 3 years ago to Ethan, an investment banker. The engagement was a monumental occasion, with a party costing substantially more than our entire wedding. Eleanor immediately began organizing a spectacular wedding for the upcoming fall. Victoria insisted that every detail be perfect, constantly shifting dates and locations. It was originally set for May, then August, and finally October 14th. This is where the issues began. Chloe's birthday is October 13th. When Victoria announced the October 14th date during a Thanksgiving dinner, I gently mentioned that it was the day after Chloe's birthday. Victoria just waved her hand and noted that prime weekend dates disappear quickly for premier Napa Valley venues. Eleanor suggested we just move Chloe's celebration to the weekend before or after. Daniel simply sat there, nodding in agreement. I was already frustrated, but I thought we could manage it. Chloe is only 6. She wouldn't truly grasp the difference if we celebrated a few days early or late. However, in March, Victoria moved the wedding date to October 13th, which is the exact day of Chloe's birthday. I learned this when Eleanor called Daniel to relay the date change. She spoke as if it were a minor logistical note. I was standing right there when she announced the wedding was now the 13th. I took the phone and asked Eleanor directly if she realized that was Chloe's birthday. She confirmed she did, but explained that a coveted St. Helena resort had a cancellation and Victoria was set on that date. She then stated that Chloe would have countless more birthdays, but Victoria would only have one wedding. Daniel took the phone back and said he'd handle the situation. After he hung up, I told him how utterly unacceptable this was. Chloe had been talking about her 6th birthday celebration for months. We had already sent out invitations to her small group of friends for a party at our house on the 13th. I had purchased a custom cake featuring her favorite animated characters. We'd rented an inflatable castle. Daniel stated that his family would never forgive him if he missed Victoria's wedding. I pointed out that Victoria knew precisely what she was doing when she chose that date. She had already moved it twice, and the last available date at the height of the season just happened to be Chloe's birthday. Daniel insisted I was being paranoid and that Victoria wasn't that calculated. We argued about this for several weeks. Daniel kept suggesting we could host Chloe's party in the morning and then drive to the wedding. The Napa Valley venue was 3 hours away, and the ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. I explained that this would mean rushing Chloe through her own birthday party just so we could quickly drive to celebrate someone else. Daniel argued that Chloe wouldn't retain the memory of the specific birthday due to her young age. That comment completely set me off. I reminded Daniel that Chloe might not remember the exact details, but she will absolutely remember that her parents chose someone else over her on her special day. He retorted that I was being overly dramatic. I asked him what he would choose if forced to decide between the two events. He couldn't answer. Eleanor started pressuring me in May about our wedding RSVP. She repeatedly called, inquiring about our dinner selections and whether Chloe would need a children's meal. Every conversation ended with her reiterating how critical this day was for Victoria and how the entire family would be present. She never once acknowledged that it was also Chloe's birthday. I finally told Eleanor that we hadn't decided whether we would attend yet. She was stunned. She claimed she couldn't believe I would prevent Daniel from attending his sister's wedding. I reminded her it was our daughter's birthday, and we had existing plans. Eleanor suggested the birthday plans were flexible, but the wedding was not. She actually suggested we hire a sitter for Chloe for the day and let her celebrate with a friend instead. When Daniel heard about this exchange, he was furious with me for not just giving his mother a simple yes. He claimed I was creating unnecessary conflict. I firmly told him there was a very clear reason, and it was our 6-year-old daughter. He claimed I was intentionally making his life difficult. I explained that Victoria and his parents were the ones who created the difficulty by selecting Chloe's birthday for the wedding. Things escalated in July when Victoria called me personally. She said she had heard I was concerned about the wedding date and wanted to clear things up. She admitted that when she moved the date, the fact that it was Chloe's birthday slipped her mind. She expressed regret for the conflict, but claimed she couldn't change anything now because the new invitations had been mailed and vendor deposits were non-refundable. I might have believed her until her next sentence. She told me that because Chloe was so young, this was an excellent chance to teach her that sometimes we must make personal sacrifices for the greater family good. She promised Chloe would understand when she grew up why her parents prioritized attending such an important family event. That's when it hit me. Daniel's family viewed Chloe as less important than Victoria's wedding. They expected a 6-year-old to make major sacrifices so the adults could do exactly as they wished. I told Victoria that Chloe was a part of the family too, and her birthday was equally important. Victoria remarked, "Of course Chloe is important, but a wedding is a singular event, whereas birthdays occur every single year." After that call, I sat Daniel down and laid out the situation simply. I told him he was free to attend the wedding if he chose, but Chloe and I would not be going. We were hosting the party at our Seattle home to honor her birthday. He would have to decide which event held the most importance for him. Daniel claimed I was issuing an unfair ultimatum. I explained that his sister had already issued the ultimatum by choosing that date. He claimed I was blowing things out of proportion. I asked him how he would have felt if his parents had missed his birthday as a child to attend someone else's wedding. He said that was completely different because this was his sister. We went back and forth like this for a few more weeks. Daniel kept trying to find compromises that would allow him to do both things. He suggested we have a small cake cutting for Chloe in the morning and then everyone drive to the wedding together. I reminded him that Chloe's friends had been invited and we couldn't just cancel on them. He proposed moving Chloe's celebration to the previous weekend. I mentioned that we'd still be spending her actual birthday at someone else's gathering. In August, Eleanor started calling me multiple times weekly. She claimed that my stubbornness was fracturing the family unit. She told me Victoria was highly stressed by the turmoil and that I was ruining what should have been the happiest time of her life. Eleanor suggested that as adults, Daniel and I needed to set an example for Chloe by always putting family first. I finally lost my patience and told Eleanor that Chloe was also family. Eleanor scoffed. Of course she is, but Chloe is just a child who wouldn't truly grasp the gravity of missing the wedding. I countered that Chloe deserved to feel paramount on her birthday. Eleanor claimed I was spoiling Chloe by treating one day as such a huge deal. The definitive breaking point occurred 2 weeks before the wedding. Daniel returned home and admitted he had spoken with his father. Robert had warned Daniel that missing Victoria's wedding would cause irreversible damage to his relationship with the family. Robert stated that some things are more important than a child's birthday party, and Daniel needed to get his priorities straightened out. I asked Daniel what he had told his father. Daniel claimed he had explained our difficult position, but Robert refused to listen. Then Daniel suggested we just go to the wedding. He stated Chloe would get over it quickly, but his family might never forgive him for missing such a significant event. That night, the reality sank in. My husband would choose his sister over our child. He was willing to actively disappoint Chloe on her birthday to appease his family. I stopped arguing with him about it. I simply began planning Chloe's birthday celebration as if he wouldn't be present. Daniel inquired what I was doing the next morning. I told him I was confirming details for Chloe's party, which was happening with or without him. He asked if I was truly serious about not attending the wedding. I claimed I'd never been more serious about anything. Chloe's birthday was non-negotiable for me. Daniel stated that he felt trapped between his wife and his family. I informed him that Chloe and I were supposed to be his primary family. He said that we were his family, but so were his parents and Victoria. I told him that he urgently needed to decide which family was most important to him. So here we are a week before both events. Daniel has yet to give me a definitive answer about his plans. He keeps saying he's trying to find a resolution. Meanwhile, I'm preparing a birthday celebration that my husband may not attend because he's terrified of disappointing his sister. I'm left wondering if I'm being unreasonable. Is it terrible that I refuse to spend my daughter's birthday at someone else's wedding? Should I just relent and attend to keep the peace? Or are Daniel's family truly unreasonable and asking us to value Victoria's wedding over Chloe's birthday? I hadn't intended to update this soon, but so much has occurred and I need to document it. Thank you to everyone who commented on my initial post. Reading your responses made me realize I wasn't crazy for prioritizing my daughter's birthday. So, this is what happened. The week leading up to Chloe's birthday and Victoria's wedding was agonizingly tense. Daniel barely spoke to me and spent most of his time on the phone with his relatives. Eleanor's voice became increasingly loud and insistent over the phone as the days passed. Victoria called 3 more times to plead with me to bring Chloe to the wedding. Daniel made his final choice on October 12th, the day before Chloe's birthday. He returned home from work and announced that he was going to the wedding. He refused to miss his sister's wedding and claimed that his family's disapproval would be too much to bear. Then he half-heartedly asked if Chloe and I would reconsider joining him. I refused. We were holding Chloe's celebration exactly as scheduled. Daniel was furious, accusing me of being selfish and manipulative. He claimed I was using Chloe to intentionally harm his family. I told him I was protecting Chloe from people who clearly thought she was unimportant. Daniel said he'd leave early Saturday morning and try to return by Sunday evening. I simply said, fine. He asked if I would explain to Chloe why her father wasn't present for her birthday. I replied I'd tell her that Daddy needed to be somewhere else. Saturday morning arrived. Chloe woke up thrilled for her birthday. She ran into our bedroom asking where Daddy was. I informed her that her papa had to leave for an appointment, but would be back soon. She then asked if her father had forgotten her birthday. I said no. Daddy remembered. He just needed to assist Aunt Victoria with something urgent. Daniel had left a gift on the kitchen counter, along with a note promising to make it up to Chloe when he returned. Chloe opened it to find a doll she had admired. She played with it for about 10 minutes before asking when Daddy was coming to her party. The festivities began around 2 p.m. Chloe kept asking where Daddy was. Chloe's small friends started to arrive, and she told them that Daddy was on his way to her celebration, but he was running late. I had to continually redirect her focus to the games and activities. Eleanor called me at approximately 3 p.m. She explained that Daniel had arrived at the wedding resort and wanted to know how Chloe's party was progressing. I told her everything was fine and hung up. She called back an hour later to compliment Victoria on her beautiful dress. I didn't respond. Despite the circumstances, the celebration was a success. Chloe had a wonderful time with her friends and loved the inflatable castle, though she asked about Daniel about 20 times throughout the day. Every time a new car pulled up, she would rush to the front door, convinced it was her daddy. Chloe fell asleep on the sofa with her new doll after the party ended and her friends had gone home. She was exhausted from waiting for Daniel to return. I carried her to bed, and she awoke briefly to ask whether Daddy would be home when she woke up the next morning. I responded, probably not, but maybe the day after. Daniel texted me photographs from the wedding, Victoria in her gown, the ceremony, and the reception. He sent me a message stating, "Chloe looked happy in the pictures you posted from the party." I did not reply. Daniel returned home around 8 p.m. on Sunday. Chloe was already in bed, but when she heard the garage door, she ran downstairs. She flew into his arms and started excitedly telling him all about her celebration. Daniel looked tired and completely weighed down by guilt. Still, he listened to every detail Chloe wanted to share. Later that night, after Chloe had fallen asleep, Daniel tried to talk to me. He described the wedding as spectacular, but admitted he kept thinking about Chloe's celebration. He stated that several people had asked where we were, and he had to keep fabricating excuses. He claimed Victoria asked about Chloe once during the event. I asked Daniel if it was truly worth it. He said he didn't know. I informed him Chloe had asked for him 20 times at her party. Daniel expressed regret at missing it, but insisted he couldn't have missed Victoria's wedding either. I told him he absolutely could have, but he chose not to. Then Daniel said something that fundamentally changed my perspective. He told me that during the father-daughter dance at the reception, Robert danced with Victoria because her biological father was deceased. Daniel admitted that seeing them reminded him of missing his own daughter's birthday to watch someone else assume the father figure role for Victoria. I desperately hoped this was a turning point. Perhaps Daniel would finally grasp the magnitude of his choice. But then he immediately said that while he felt awful about missing Chloe's birthday, he still believed he had made the only right decision. He claimed Victoria's wedding was a singular, once-in-a-lifetime event, whereas Chloe would celebrate many, many more birthdays. That's when I realized absolutely nothing had changed. Daniel still believed that his family's needs were more important than our daughter's milestones. He felt bad for skipping Chloe's party, but he didn't believe he was wrong. I told Daniel that I needed a significant amount of time to think about our marriage. He questioned what I meant. I stated I needed to decide if I wanted to remain married to someone who would consistently prioritize his sister and parents over his wife and child. Daniel told me I was drastically overreacting and that missing one birthday didn't mean he loved her any less. I pointed out that it was never just about one birthday. It was a pattern. Whenever his family requested something, we were expected to drop everything. Every time Eleanor criticized my parenting, Daniel remained silent. Victoria demanded constant attention, and our plans were immediately deemed irrelevant. Daniel claimed he couldn't change how his family behaved, but he loved Chloe and me. I told him that love was meaningless if he wasn't willing to stand up for us. Daniel stated that he didn't know how to balance everyone's expectations. I explained that Chloe's needs should come first because she was 6 years old and we were her parents. We've been sleeping in separate bedrooms since he returned. Daniel keeps trying to initiate conversations about how to fix this, but he stubbornly refuses to acknowledge that choosing the wedding was the wrong decision. He simply wants me to forgive him and move on. But this is what truly devastates me. Chloe hasn't asked about Daddy missing her party since the first night. She simply accepted that Daddy had a more important place to be. I don't want her to grow up thinking that's normal. I don't want her to believe that the people who claim to love her have more important engagements. I have been looking at apartments online in Portland, Oregon. I haven't committed to anything yet, but I'm beginning to believe Daniel would never prioritize Chloe and me in the way his family prioritizes Victoria. I'm not sure I can keep fighting this battle for the next 12 years until Chloe is grown. Daniel's family has been contacting him to express their gratitude for his attendance at the wedding. Eleanor sent Chloe a late birthday card containing $50. Victoria shared a gallery of images of her perfect day on social media. No one has asked Chloe about her celebration or whether she was disappointed that Daddy was absent. I'm weary of being the only person who believes Chloe is as important as Victoria. Things have deteriorated significantly since my last post. I wasn't sure if I should write again, but I desperately need advice because I don't know what the next step should be. After Daniel returned from Victoria's wedding, we didn't speak substantively for 3 weeks. He kept trying to talk about moving forward, but I couldn't get past the fact that he still genuinely believed he had made the correct choice. Chloe seemed fine on the surface, but she started having nightmares and asking me unsettling questions about whether Daddy truly loved her. Daniel suggested we go on a family vacation 6 weeks after the wedding to make up for missing Chloe's birthday. He proposed spending a long weekend at a theme park in Orlando, Florida. I told him we couldn't afford a trip like that right now, and even if we could, it felt like he was trying to simply buy his way out of what he had done. Daniel explained that he was trying to do something special for Chloe. I mentioned that the truly special thing would have been for him to attend her birthday party. He claimed he couldn't undo the past and that we needed to focus on the future. I informed him that I wasn't ready to move forward yet. That's when Daniel suggested we seek marriage counseling. I felt a surge of relief when he brought it up because I assumed he was finally taking the situation seriously. We found a counselor who could see us the following week. The first session felt awkward. The counselor asked each of us to explain why we were there. I explained how Daniel chose his sister's wedding over Chloe's birthday, which was part of a larger pattern of him consistently prioritizing his family over us. Daniel claimed I was obsessively holding a grudge over a single day and refusing to offer forgiveness. The counselor asked Daniel if he understood how deeply missing Chloe's birthday had upset me. Daniel explained that he understood my disappointment, but he couldn't be in two places at once. The counselor inquired whether he had explored all alternative options. Daniel explained that there were no other options because the wedding date could not be changed. I interjected and stated that Chloe's birthday couldn't be changed either. Daniel stated that birthdays happen every year, but weddings are unique. The counselor inquired about Daniel's perception of Chloe's reaction to his absence from her party. Daniel stated that Chloe was fine and had moved on quickly. That's when I informed the counselor about Chloe's nightmares and questions about her father's love. Daniel appeared genuinely shocked. He claimed Chloe never mentioned being unhappy to him. I mentioned that Chloe was 6 years old and didn't possess the emotional vocabulary to communicate her feelings directly. The counselor invited us to return the next week. I believed we were making genuine progress because Daniel seemed stunned to learn that Chloe had been more affected than he realized. Then an event occurred that stalled all progress. Eleanor called me 4 days after our first counseling appointment. She mentioned that she had heard Daniel and I were having difficulties and wanted to help. She explained that she knew I was upset over Victoria's wedding, but it was time to stop punishing Daniel for doing the right thing. I informed Eleanor that attending Chloe's birthday party would have been the right decision. Eleanor claimed Chloe was too young to understand the significance of major family occasions like weddings. She stated flatly, "I was teaching Chloe to be selfish by making such an enormous fuss about her birthday." Then Eleanor said something that made my blood boil. She informed me that Victoria was considering having children soon, and that when that happened, I would finally comprehend how vital it is for families to support one another during major life events. I asked Eleanor if she believed Chloe's birthday was a significant milestone. Eleanor claimed that birthday parties for small children were simply an opportunity for parents to show off. Outraged, I hung up on Eleanor. I realized Daniel's family would never regard Chloe as essential as Victoria. They would always find justifications to put Chloe's needs second. I told Daniel about our conversation that night. Instead of being upset with his mother for calling me, Daniel claimed Eleanor was merely trying to be supportive. He actually speculated that his mother might have been correct in her assessment that I was overly enthusiastic about Chloe's birthday. I questioned Daniel if he honestly believed his mother was correct. He claimed he didn't know anymore because everyone was giving him different opinions. Our second counseling session was a total disaster. Daniel spent the majority of his time talking about how stressed he was because everyone was angry at him. He stated his parents were worried that I was deliberately dividing the family over something that was already over. He claimed I was miserable and would not allow him to make amends for missing Chloe's birthday. He admitted that he felt unable to satisfy anyone. The counselor asked Daniel what he believed would help resolve the matter. Daniel stated that I believed I needed to forgive him and we needed to move on. The counselor inquired whether Daniel had done anything concrete to earn that forgiveness. Daniel said he had apologized and offered to take Chloe on a special trip. I informed the counselor that Daniel had never once indicated that he was wrong for choosing the wedding. I stated he kept saying he was sorry I was unhappy, but he never admitted he made the wrong decision. Daniel claimed he couldn't admit he was wrong because he still believed he did what he had to do. The counselor urged Daniel to imagine Chloe getting married in 18 years and Daniel's brother having his wedding on the same day. The counselor inquired as to Daniel's preferred choice. Daniel explained that it would be different because Chloe would be his daughter. I reminded him that she was his daughter now. Daniel said he knew, but she was only 6 years old and wouldn't remember this birthday when she grew up. I explained that she might not recall the specifics, but she would certainly remember the feeling of not being significant enough. We left the session with homework. The counselor asked each of us to write down what we needed to feel like our marriage was progressing. Daniel was meant to focus on how his choices were impacting Chloe. I was meant to think deeply about what forgiveness might truly look like. I wrote 5 pages detailing how Daniel needed to admit his mistakes and promise to put Chloe first in the future.
Daniel wrote 4 sentences on how I should stop bringing up the wedding and move on. When we shared our homework at the next session, the counselor asked Daniel if he had reflected on how his decisions affected Chloe. Daniel admitted that Chloe was more upset than he had anticipated, but he still maintained he had made the best decision he could with the information he had at the time. The counselor inquired as to what critical information Daniel did not have. Daniel expressed surprise that Chloe would be so profoundly impacted by his absence from one party. I pointed out that any parent would understand that missing their child's birthday would be upsetting. Daniel claimed that hindsight is 20/20. That's when I finally realized counseling was not going to work. Daniel was unwilling to adapt or admit he was wrong. He was there only to persuade me to stop being angry at what he did. He wanted the counselor to convince me that his decision was entirely reasonable. I informed Daniel after that session that I was finished with counseling. He questioned why. I explained that he wasn't taking it seriously or honestly. Daniel stated he was trying, but I refused to listen to the counselor's suggestions for moving forward. Victoria announced her pregnancy 3 weeks ago. Eleanor quickly called Daniel to share the wonderful news. Then she called me to tell me how delighted she was to become a grandmother again. She stated the baby would be exceptionally wonderful because Victoria and Ethan were married and financially secure. The comment about Victoria's baby being extra special because of her marriage and money was clearly aimed directly at Chloe and myself. Eleanor has frequently commented that Daniel and I had Chloe before we were entirely financially comfortable. When Daniel learned about the pregnancy, he was overjoyed. He started talking about how Chloe would have a relative her age and how much fun future family gatherings would be. I didn't say anything, but I was thinking about how this baby would instantly become the new center of attention, and Chloe would become even less important. Daniel questioned why I wasn't thrilled at Victoria's news. I expressed my happiness for them, but I was worried about how Chloe might be affected. Daniel stated that it would have no negative effect on Chloe, only positive ones. I claimed Victoria's wedding had already demonstrated how little Chloe meant at his family when something else was happening. Daniel told me I should stop actively searching for reasons to be negative about his family. I explained that his family kept giving me solid justifications. Daniel stated that if I just tried to get along with them, life would be much better for everyone. I asked Daniel who he believed should be attempting to get along with whom. Last week, I reached a final, firm decision. I informed Daniel that I wanted a separation. He questioned if I was serious. I claimed I'd never been more serious about anything. Daniel questioned whether I was truly going to terminate our marriage over one single day. I told him I was terminating our marriage because he would never, ever put Chloe and me first. Daniel stated that he prioritized us in every area that truly mattered. I asked him to recall one single time he chose us above his family in a conflict. He could not think of any examples. I stated that this precisely proved my point. Daniel promised to improve in the future. I stated I'd heard that exact line before and nothing ever changed. Daniel inquired as to what he might do to demonstrate his commitment this time. I replied there was nothing he could do because I no longer trusted him. I located an affordable apartment on my own in Lake Oswego, Oregon. It isn't as luxurious as our Seattle house, but it is clean and safe, and Chloe is enrolled in a decent school district.
I have not signed the lease yet, but the landlord is holding it until the end of the week. Daniel repeatedly asks if we can try counseling again or if there is anything else he can do to fix things. I told him the time to try was before he prioritized Victoria's wedding over Chloe's birthday. He stated that one error should not end a 9-year marriage. I claimed it wasn't a single mistake. It was a glaring example of a pattern that would not change. Chloe continues asking why mommy and daddy are sad. I'm not sure what to tell her. I don't want her to believe it's her fault, but I also don't know how to explain that Papa loves her, but not enough to prioritize her when it counts most. I have until Friday to decide on the apartment. Part of me hopes Daniel will do something major to show me how much he has changed. But most of me understands that even if he promises to be different, Victoria's pregnancy will open up fresh opportunities for him to prioritize his family over us. This will be my final update. I've received countless messages questioning what occurred, so I wanted to conclude the story properly. I took the apartment. Daniel didn't really fight me over it, which told me everything I needed to know about his true desire to save our marriage. We agreed that Chloe would stay with me during the week and spend the weekends with Daniel until we could work out a more permanent custody arrangement. Chloe struggled during her first few weeks. She kept asking when we'd return to the big house with Daddy. I told her we would be staying in our new apartment, but Daddy would still see her frequently. She inquired as to if she had done something wrong to cause us to move. I informed her that none of this was her fault and that both Mommy and Daddy adored her very much. Daniel came to pick up Chloe for their first weekend together about 5 weeks after I moved out. Chloe ran to him as if she hadn't seen him in months, despite the fact that it had only been 6 days. Daniel looked around the apartment asking if we had everything we needed. I claimed everything was perfectly fine. While Chloe was gathering her overnight bag, Daniel inquired about my happiness. I informed him that I was simply adjusting. He claimed the house felt hollow without us. I stated that he could have prevented that outcome. Daniel acknowledged that I blamed him, but he hoped that one day I would see that he was trying to do what he believed was the right thing for everyone. I stated that striving to please everyone usually results in making no one happy. Chloe had a wonderful weekend with Daniel. When he brought her back Sunday evening, she was eager to tell me all about their activities. Daniel had taken her to the Portland Zoo, where they had ice cream and watched movies. Chloe explained, Daddy seemed a little sad, but he tried to hide it by being extra fun. After Chloe went to bed, Daniel lingered at the door. He wondered if there was any way we could try again. I asked him what was fundamentally different this time. He stated that he would strive harder to balance everything. I pointed out that he shouldn't need to try to prioritize his own daughter. It should be a natural instinct. According to Daniel, nothing about this circumstance felt normal. Eleanor called me 4 weeks into our separation. She claimed she'd heard Daniel and I were having problems and wanted to know what she could do to help. I almost laughed because Eleanor's assistance was the last thing our marriage needed. Eleanor said she knew how upset I was about Victoria's wedding, but that enough time had passed for me to be over it. She claimed holding grudges was bad for Chloe and the family's health. I informed Eleanor that I was not holding a grudge. I was actively shielding my child from people who did not truly value her. Eleanor objected, claiming that was unfair because Chloe was adored by the entire family. I asked Eleanor to recall one instance when she prioritized Chloe's needs over Victoria's wants. Eleanor argued that was not a fair comparison, because Victoria was an adult with adult responsibilities, whereas Chloe was a child. I replied, exactly. Chloe was a child who needed the adults in her life to put her first sometimes. Eleanor said children needed to understand that they weren't the center of the universe. I stated that Chloe was learning that lesson far too quickly. Eleanor then told me something that completely validated everything I'd suspected about Daniel's family. She explained that when Victoria's child was born, they hoped Daniel would bring Chloe over more so she could be a good big cousin. Margaret emphasized the importance of Chloe understanding her role in caring for the new baby. I asked Eleanor how she expected a 6-year-old to interact with a newborn. Eleanor stated that Chloe could help entertain the baby while also learning about family responsibility. I informed Eleanor that Chloe was a family member who should be cared for rather than immediately put to work. After hanging up with Eleanor, I realized I had made the correct decision to leave. Chloe was never seen by Daniel's family as anything more than a supporting player in Victoria's story. Chloe was supposed to sacrifice her birthday for Victoria's wedding. She was now expected to serve as Victoria's built-in babysitter. I called my lawyer the next day to inquire about filing for divorce. She stated we could start the process whenever I was ready. I told her I wanted full custody of Chloe and supervised visits for Daniel until he could demonstrate that he would consistently prioritize Chloe's needs first. The lawyer stated that this might be difficult to prove in court. I claimed I had documentation of everything that had occurred. When I told Daniel I was going to file for divorce, he wondered if I was serious. I claimed I'd never been more serious about anything in my life. Daniel stated that he believed separation would help us work things out. I said that separation had only helped me realize that Chloe and I would be infinitely better off without individuals who did not value us. Daniel requested whether he may spend unsupervised time with Chloe. I said as long as he didn't take her around his family alone. Daniel questioned why. I said this was because Eleanor had previously told me that she expected Chloe to assist care for Victoria's baby, and I would not allow Chloe to be used in that way. Daniel claimed I was being unfair, that Eleanor only wanted Chloe to bond with her new cousin. I stated that Chloe was 6 years old and should not be responsible for anyone else's children. Daniel claimed I was purposefully keeping Chloe away from her family. I claimed I was protecting Chloe from people who viewed her as free labor. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks ago. Daniel sees Chloe every other weekend and 1 evening per week. He cannot take her to his parents' place or to other family events without my explicit approval. Daniel objected at first, but his lawyer encouraged him to accept it. Victoria had a baby last month. Eleanor has called me 3 times to inquire when she can meet her new grandson, Lucas, and Chloe can meet her cousins. I informed Eleanor that